Welcome back to the news, everyone. I've got some pretty impactful stories. Let's just jump in with the first thing being that BlizzCon is back, with tickets being announced. They're $299 and $799 for the version with accelerated lines and the Portal Pass Lounge. Yeah, that's expensive. For comparison, the previous physical BlizzCon was $229, the $599 Portal Pass, and the few years before that it was $199. But what is interesting is it says that BlizzCon 2023 will be streamed online for free. It does also say the virtual ticket will return, but specifies that it will have in-game loot and early access to convention merch with some other perks. But at no point does it say you'll get like paywalled panels or anything, and the blog post says BlizzCon 2023 will be streamed for free. It used to just say that the opening ceremony would be for free. I suppose that's a change. The more expensive prices, which, let's be real, most of us won't be going near anyway, will be a less bitter pill to swallow if the core convention is actually free. And certainly con economics are interesting. I mean, if you match the 2019 attendance of 40,000 people and assumed everyone got $299 tickets, that's like $12 million, which, yes, is a lot. It will be more, of course, with, portal passes, merch, and all of that stuff. But cons like this are pretty expensive to put on. So, I don't know, kind of interesting. And it might be more expensive because this time they talked up making loads of per franchise, like themed spaces and art installations, which seems high effort. I mean, sounds neat anyway. As for the tickets, you can get them on the 8th of July at 10 a.m. Pacific and the 22nd of July at 10 a.m. Pacific, so good luck. But there is a final tease, and that is the key art. Thrall is on the key art representing Warcraft this time around, and this can be relevant. Sylvanas was on 2019's key art. She was a key character in Shadowlands. Jaina was on the 2017 key art. She was a key character in Battle for Azeroth. Who knows? I mean, Thrall hasn't showed up in Dragonflight yet, right? And I guess if you wanted to return to some core Warcraft stories, you could probably use Thrall, I imagine, in any sort of, like, world revamp expansion or anything like that. You'd probably bring back some classic characters. But again, the chances of that are not particularly massive, so I'm not going to sell you down the river. Okay, let's move on. The July trading post is actually worthy of discussion because it's different and it might contain the answer to our microtransaction fears from last week. So first, our reward for completing the adventure journal is a full new dragon riding mount called the Grotto Netherwing Drake. Yeah, it's a Netherwing Drake. Like, back in the day, these were the things to get. Like, the top goal for so many people when they started playing WoW. And they'd hit level 70, get epic flying, do the rep, get those mounts. Awesome. So that we're getting this as a dragon riding mount is brilliant. I'll definitely use it, and I like that it's not costing us tenders either. We're also getting a bonus 200 tenders for completing this month's challenges, and it seems that will hold for August as well, so 400 extra tender in total. Now, per the trailer, you can see a few new, seemingly activities for the post. And as for rewards, we've got Tyrael's Charger being there this month. So enjoy your 900 tenders that you saved if you were lucky enough to have that drop for you in the Diablo event. I suppose it's nice the trading post can act as a sort of bad luck fallback. Anyway, then we've got a green scorpion mount, the Spectral Tiger Cub pet. Do bear in mind they said the actual Spectral Tiger wouldn't be coming onto the post if my memory serves anyway. Plenty of neat weapon and armor mogs as well. A pretty solid month made more solid by that Drake. And as for those data mined tender assets, well, remember we saw these data mined traders tender assets. We kind of thought, oh dear, these look like the sort of thing that could be used if tender was to be sold. Now, these are on the 10.15 PTR. The trading post, of course, comes out July 1st. That is before 10.1.5 comes out. Now, if you look at that 200 tender asset in the trailer, you can see that it looks like very plain and specific, right? And this trailer, of course, will have been made in advance. I have to wonder if they just did not have those new assets, and now maybe it's the case that they're doing promotions in the game, so perhaps those tender denomination assets are for this, and not Blizzard selling them on the store. And perhaps the reason why they couldn't give me any comment is because they didn't want to spoil what they're clearly treating as a marketing beat. I mean, I hope so, because if you pay attention to the initial raft of data mined assets, there isn't one for 200 tender. What's going on? Anyway, and finally, based on their Twitter promo, which covered both months, we can expect to see the Alabaster Griffin and Thunderwing from the Classic Collector's Edition and the Spirit of Competition pet to arrive in August. And another thing that's arriving right now that I should mention is, turns out our game, The Pale Beyond, is on the Steam Summer Sale. I found out about this today when I noticed that it's on the summer sale. I really should have checked those emails from our publisher. Anyway, yes, Pale Beyond is currently 20% off. I think it's a slightly higher percent off for the digital collector's edition that has got the soundtrack and a digital art book. So if you want to check out Pale Beyond, that's the place to do it. I think overall we're at like 91% on our reviews right now, and it does seem there's like a nice little tick up in the sales now that the sale is on. So now that you know about that, of course, you can check out the link to the Pale Beyond down below. Next, we've got Blizzard listening to their fans because a official Classic Hardcore is coming. They unveiled it this week, and on these Hardcore realms, death is permanent. Using like Ankh or a Soul Stone, that won't help you. You'll be stuck as a ghost when you die, so that you're basically able to communicate people and settle your affairs. So I suppose that is a benefit that Azerothian ghosts have that unfortunately we don't. Dead characters can, though, move over to Classic Era, where they can roam free. PvP is opt-in, battlegrounds are disabled, as are PvP battle masters. You can engage in war games, but death will be permanent, so that's a very dangerous thing to do. And to facilitate this mode, Blizzard are also fixing up some quests that involved death and or PvP flagging, and they've made it so that mob leashing is now per zone, which does mean that people can't kite a big world boss over to Goldshire or Stormwind and ruin people's day. And also, bubble hearthing is disabled. Basically, a world where Sham's not being able to reincarnate is kind of not one that a paladin should be able to bubble hearth out of any like odd situation for. But finally, they've got a new feature, and this thing's crazy. It's called Duel to the Death. If you type in /Makara, and if your opponent accepts and types I agree, you will fight to the death. Your kill count is recorded, and of course death is permanent here. So if you see somebody who's got 10 of these, like 10 victories, you know they're pretty good, and they've definitely messed up a lot of people's days. So yes, your kill count is recorded, so there will be just some bad motherfucker who is number one in the world, and I kind of love this feature. I will never touch it. I will never touch that kind of PvP on hardcore, but I'm really glad it's there. This is great. This is purely an example of, I think, an important thing, which is Blizzard seeing what the community is doing and actually jumping on that. This is exactly the sort of decision-making that we want to see, and Blizzard also said they'll be taking any forms of trolling and griefing very, very seriously, which, yeah, they'd need to for something like this. Right then, who the bloody hell is she? I mean, they're the Titans that we know, and opposite A&R we see someone, so what the hell's going on? Well, Hearthstone has got a new expansion, it's called Titans, and it's set right after the defeat of the Black Empire, and it will feature all known Titans, which is itself kind of interesting. Right, so we got Aman'Thul, A&R, Norgannon, Golganath, Khaz'goroth, Fallen Sargeras, Agrimar, Argus, and Azeroth. And even Azeroth being there is kind of interesting. I think there's enough in the game right now to say that Azeroth maybe isn't a Titan, or perhaps that a Titan as we know them is maybe just one form that like a World Soul could take, maybe if Aman'Thul gets to it. I mean, there's some reason why everybody wants to get to Azeroth. I don't know, I just think there's more going on there. But we've also got two new Titans, Amatis and Telogris. So the latter isn't technically new, it is the name of a shattered world, and also, yes, that is the one that serves as the Void Elf base and starting area. Now, we knew previously that there was a Titan that was like in a corrupted world soul that Sargeras had just went and destroyed. So I think they're trying to fill that in. So yes, perhaps there's something interesting to the idea that the Void Elves are hanging out like in a world that used to have a Titan that was like a Void one. Who knows, maybe. But as for the new one, like, is it canon? What's going on? And first, here is what you need to know. Hearthstone is by default never canon. This is not my opinion, this is what Blizzard have like definitely said. WoW can take inspiration from and remix things from Hearthstone, but by default anything in Hearthstone is a fun aside. So as cool as the mean streets of Gadgetzan is, it's not indicative of what that town is actually like in-game now. We do even have a live example of this. So Sir Finley and Reno Jackson from the League of Explorers in Hearthstone. They are in World of Warcraft right now, but as for Reno, there ends up being a plot twist in Hearthstone that he's secretly a dragon. For WoW, They said, well, he's just Reno. It doesn't have to be that. Also, the villain of their Dragon expansion, Rafam, is technically in the game files, and Bob, the Hearthstone innkeeper, can be found in 10.15's Aeon's Fringe area, which is kind of neat. Going back to the Titans expansion then, Azeroth being counted one I think is interesting, feels like a minor walk back from how Shadowlands suggested things to be, to me anyway. Though, who knows, maybe she's different, maybe she's not. Not that the Titans calling her a Titan is like not what we would expect. That's exactly what we would expect from the Titans, given how they think. But this Hearthstone expansion is basically set before the arrival of like mortals on the scene. So it's likely when the Keepers are setting their story straight about what version of history best suits their goals. And the reason why there are 2 new Titans is pretty simple. It's because Hearthstone has 11 classes and each one is getting its own Titan legendary card. So personally then, I'm not reading too much into this. I think it would be a bit insane to retcon a new Titan into WoW in this manner. At least for Amethyst, I think she's like a bit weird. Telogris can work as a failed like awakening, like a failed Titan, the one that Sargeras defeated, so that does make sense. As for Amethyst, she's a bit odd, like she looks like a night elf. That's really strange. Many people initially thought that she was Elune, which kind of sent everybody mad. I mean, why would Elune look like a night elf when we know that she is a sort of verse-wide deity, at least, you know, per the Shadowlands. So TLDR, don't really worry about any retcons with this, and at the very least, we'll get a bunch of, like, pretty snazzy looking card art that we can use in videos, which is useful. This is an exciting thing for me. So the Mega Dungeon has been massively buffed. I am very much here for what Blizzard's doing. So, do you like the idea of raiding, but you don't have a large enough group to do it? Or do you like the idea of dungeons, but you don't like the idea of the timer in Mythic Plus? Well, there is good news. Dawn of the Infinite is kind of tailored for you. Last week I covered how Blizzard are positioning this, and this week we've actually seen the tuning, and it turns out they're not joking around. So Squishy, who writes for Wowhead, tested it on PTR, and basically said, the initial impression is, it feels like Mythic Raid progression for a 5-man group. It took them 5 minutes to defeat the second boss, ending by saying that the overall experience felt really well tuned and was really fun at eye level 425, which is what the PTR sets every character to in that content. So, fairly interesting. I mean, 425, that's definitely lower than many of our mains will be. We'll be doing quite a lot more damage than a 425 scaled group, but it still does seem like the mechanics are actually going to matter. And it'll be a real, good challenge. And this is exactly what I want to see. A true endgame dungeon with no timer, something that's a real challenge for a small group. I think WoW's mechanics often feel better in a small group size, and for me, it takes away part of what will make a mythic raid to be, super hard, which is purely that when you've got 20 people, that's more people who could make a critical mistake. So I think doing quite a bit harder 5-player content is a really, really good position for difficulty. There's really good personal responsibility for everybody who's there, but the group's not so large that there are just so many humans that can make a mistake that it'll, waste your time. So for me, this is super exciting. And if you're worried about the difficulty, 10.17 is going to be out probably 6 to 10 weeks after 10.15. It will add heroic modes of this dungeon, and that's a lot shorter for turnaround time than usual. And to add to this, and I think this is just the cherry on top, the Immortal achievement. We now know what you'll get for doing it, and it is this amazing looking set of armor. You get it for every armor type, it seems, if you complete this dungeon. And yes, that is Immortal, so that's a callback to the famous achievement from Naxxramas, which was to clear the raid with no deaths. So yes, if you can do the dungeon on Mythic with no deaths, you'll get a pretty damn sick looking set of armor for all of your characters. So honestly, with the time rifts, the setting the timeline straight, a set of daily quests, the encrypted narrative content, this mega dungeon and the way that it's positioned, I think 10.15 is really actually shaping up to be a pretty stellar patch. And with that, well, that's it for the news. That's all the stuff today. If you would like to support what we're doing and also pick up the video game that we made, The Pale Beyond is inspired by the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, narrative survival role-playing game. You can pick it up on Steam because it's on the summer sale. I believe currently 20% off. Link will be below. But that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.